So my name's Andrew Cutfield. I'm the supply and technical manager for Just Avocados. Part of my role is to identify opportunities to be able to assist them in growing better crops. Andrew Darling and his wife Jo Darling own the business, and they've taken that from being primarily kitty centric to having a footprint up to the far north and pretty much through all of the growing regions of the avocado industry. Primarily the key challenge for third-party growers or private growers like myself is really focused on production. So at the moment the national average is about 9 to 10 tonnes a hectare. Good orchards are doing in excess of 20, 24 tonnes, 25 tonnes. The year that we've just had a really low payout, and that's really focused people, I guess, in terms of their cost of production. And really the key to doing that is to be able to lift your production year on year and have that consistently at about 20 tonne a hectare. There's two things that we kind of look through when we're looking at technology. We want to look at it as an environmental aspect of it, so how do we become better around stewarding our land? And then the second aspect is how do we get the economic benefits from introducing technology. And I guess probably the third thing is that we've got more control, we've got more visibility on what we're doing. Tools that we're starting to use and explore are really around water use. That's also linked into the way that we're fertilising and irrigating our properties. So when I first took over this orchard, we just had soil moisture probes here that went down. One was, I can't remember, 12 inches and the other one was 24 inches. I would manually go and review that once a week and then set up an irrigation cycle that might be 6 hours or 8 hours. Whereas now we've got probes in the ground that measure the soil moisture every 100 mil, and we're using that insight to be able to refine our irrigation programs and our fertigation programs in a lot more detail. So for example, if we're running a fertigation cycle, we'll be irrigating for maybe 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, in order to be able to just wet down the feeding zone for the roots. So making that nutrient available and not having it run through the soil profile. Whereas if we're doing an irrigation cycle, i.e. the trees are starting to get under water stress, then we'll irrigate, in my case here on this orchard, we'll irrigate for up to 20 hours. But we can see where that water is and we're able to refine that in real time. That's provided to us by Agritechnovation. We also use them to provide our fertiliser recommendations for the orchards, and they also provide a great service in terms of soil mapping and being able to integrate that with GIS and give us a geospatial view of where our soil deficiencies are or nutrient deficiencies within our orchards. Basically the data that we saw showed us that it was about a 12 to 18 month payback just in terms of R&M and better utilisation of water, power, that sort of thing. Anecdotally I would suggest that I've probably saved about 30% of my costs by putting in the monitoring technology. Production wise, I've gone up year on year. I used to think that my upper limit might be 20 tonne. I now think that probably 25 to 30 might be a realistic big stretch for this orchard. In terms of understanding the direction and introducing technology, it's always hard because you've got so many competing aspects of where should we focus first. But now that we're starting to introduce technology, we're seeing it build on itself relatively quickly because we can get so much more visibility around what we're doing. A real simple example would be putting GPSs onto our tractors and onto our machines. And that's given us the insight, in a real simple terms, why have you come back at 3 p.m. and you should have been out till 5 p.m? I fertilised the whole orchard. Well, I've just pulled up the GPS track and you missed block 3 and you've got fertiliser left over. So, just really simple things that have given us some more insight and a management tool, I guess. But also with that consistency of delivery, the confidence around what we're doing, we're also seeing that transition through into our tree health and productivity. So the apps that we're using primarily are either OnSide or Safe 365 for their health and safety, which has been a key focus for us over the last couple of years in terms of putting that into app-based systems And that's also extending to our machines in the sense of QR codes that we've got on them for pre-start checklists and things. And that also feeds into looking at our machines, looking at their maintenance requirements and ensuring that we've got uptime with our machines so we're getting more productivity from what we're doing. In terms of advice to growers around getting onto the journey, certainly I think getting something that understands and that you're passionate about to start with is probably that key point, because you're then going to roll that into your business and then it becomes a building platform for the next aspect of what you're doing.